So I got a little outside the box episode here just because I think this is interesting. Sony has recently changed their censorship policies on PlayStation 4, and they didn't really explain it at the time, although I think it was obvious they're trying to set up the PlayStation 5 to be more family friendly. I think is the way you're looking at it. You know, they're censoring things like the tits and the ass and all that kind of stuff in a similar fashion that Nintendo does, which is weird because Nintendo doesn't always censor it in Japan, but when it comes over here, they do. I mean, the Mithra art change in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, just as a more recent example of Nintendo censoring itself. So it appears that Sony has now given an official statement on it. Sony of Japan president Atsushi Morita commented on the matter. And here's what he had to say. Regarding the regulation of the depiction of content, it's simply a matter of matching global standards. As for the freedom of expression, we have to think about what might be unpleasant for children and shield them from those things while also thinking and assessing ways to find a balance for that expression. So this obviously deals with the overly sexually suggestive content that's in a lot of Western games, Witcher 3, stuff like that. And I honestly, I'm not sure what to think about this because Sony's platform has always, at least to me, been the gamers' platform, right? It's that platform where it's cool to own it. It is the platform where you feel most comfortable associating yourself with as a gamer. Nintendo is often viewed as that kiddie platform. You have Microsoft that sometimes gets viewed as that dude bro platform, but Sony is the gamer platform. And I always felt like these reputations are overblown and completely untrue. Obviously, from a Nintendo perspective, I don't think Nintendo is just for kids, or even primarily for kids, if I'm being completely honest. And I don't think that that Microsoft and Xbox are dude bros, and that PlayStation is strictly a gamer's platform. But I do think that there is something to be said for what Sony's trying to do. They're trying to become more like Nintendo. Nintendo is viewed as a family-friendly company because Nintendo does do things that are generally considered family-friendly, including things like that censorship of Mithra in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. It's such a minor thing. I think most people won't even notice, but Nintendo pays attention to those details, and they try to cater it for whatever market they happen to be in. Now, it's important to remember that, again, Nintendo doesn't take as strong of a censorship stance in Japan as they do overseas, so it's not as universal as Sony. Sony's kind of trying to make a universal policy with their censorship, whereas Nintendo seems to localize their censorship based on the given area and the perceived perception and audience and cultural acceptance of such things. In Japan, it seems to be more culturally acceptive of a lot of that anime chick stuff than it is here in the United States with a younger audience. Personally, none of it really bothers me. I mean, come on, Xenoblade Chronicles 2, hello, pretty much everything happening in that game. You could argue there's plenty of sexually suggestive content. However, that game's also rated at an age group that should be okay with that content. And I think that's kind of the key here is Nintendo censoring it in Smash Bros. Because Smash Bros. Has a rating that's below Xenoblade Chronicles. So Smash Bros. Naturally needs to make sure it maintains that rating just so it can reach the biggest possible audience. So I think there's a lot at work when it comes to this stuff with Nintendo that makes a lot more logical sense, even though I know that's not always the case. Fire Emblem infamously has censorship in it all the time when it comes to the West, even though the age rating of those games should allow that content to be completely fine. So I honestly don't always understand why Nintendo does it, outside of the fact that, hey, they are trying to maintain this super family-friendly reputation, which is where they get the reputation of Nintendo's for kids, when just because they keep things family-friendly doesn't mean that's necessarily the case. Why Sony wants to go this route is a question that I don't know that they're ever going to directly answer. I know it's been asked of them, and they've just dodged it every time. They basically dodged it this time. They didn't really say why the sudden change. They just say it's a matter of matching global standards. I don't get it, if I'm being completely honest. No, this doesn't mean they're going to hold every third-party company and everyone else to censoring their content on their platform, but I do think that they're trying to make an effort. Maybe the logical conclusion, honestly, is that Sony sees an end to what they're currently doing. They are looking into the future, and they're like, look, if we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to be fine for a little while, but there's an end to this, right? We can't just keep appealing to the same audience over and over and over again. And I think they look at Xbox One. Okay, Xbox One's market shrunk. That's great. Even if PlayStation 5 captures the PlayStation 4 audience, what if the PlayStation 5 audience is smaller than the PlayStation 4 audience? I mean, the overall audience of Xbox One and PlayStation 4 is smaller than the audience from the prior generation. So maybe Sony's looking into the future, and they're like, look, we can't just appeal to the typical everyday gamer. We actually need to work on expanding the fan base, and they feel like the best way to do that is to cater to children, to try to be what Nintendo attempts to do, and that is cater to everyone and introduce new people into gaming, and to do so without upsetting parents. And it's a bit interesting because Sony's bread and butter has always been those more, is hardcore the right term? More mature rated games, I guess. The Uncharted of the world. Even the Marvel Spider-Man game was definitely catered, towards or skewed towards an older audience. A lot of their content in general is just kind of, pushing that whole, hardcore gamer perspective, and I think it's worked brilliantly for them. So it feels a little interesting to see that they might be backtracking on that. And I know we saw it a bit with Knack and Knack 2 and maybe Dreams and stuff like that, but I think Sony's got bigger plans than that for PlayStation 5, where they really want to diversify their lineup and really, really, really get a lot more kids into it. I know Microsoft tried to do that with Kinect, but really wasn't the kind of success that Wii was. So again, I think Sony's just trying to expand the gamer base to a younger audience, and I'm not wholly against what they're trying to do. I just feel like anytime these companies, and this includes Nintendo, goes outside of their comfort zone, goes outside of what they're best at, they tend to struggle to really capture what they're aiming for. And I wish Sony luck trying to go for a more family-friendly image. I hope it doesn't hurt their reputation with the older gamers or the more hardcore gamers, like Nintendo. Nintendo's reputation with hardcore gamers, outside of The Legend of Zelda and Metroid and stuff like that, is pretty down in the dumps. And that sucks that happens, and I hope that doesn't happen with PlayStation, or Xbox is decidedly going to get an advantage with that audience, because Xbox is scooping up a lot of really, really good studios, and they're probably going to keep delivering a bunch of hardcore games following up Crackdown 3. So it's going to be interesting to see where the tides shift over the next generation. One thing I can say is I'm almost happy to be a Nintendo fan in this situation. Not because I wish any ill will on Sony or their future plans with PlayStation 5, and I'm not even sure this policy change is going to end up affecting them as much as others do, but because I know what Nintendo is, right? Nintendo is a company that cares about their family-friendly reputation. This is why they're not letting that Russian CEO make any public appearances right now, and he's under internal investigation because he did several things, it sounds like, that are unbecoming of a Nintendo employee. It makes Nintendo look bad. So Nintendo cares very much about that reputation and maintaining that reputation. And yeah, Nintendo themselves is a wild card. They're always going to try to be different, and they're not going to try to copy people per se. They're going to look at what one company is doing and be like, hey, we could do that, but let's do it our own way. And sometimes it works out really, really well. I think Switch is an example of the full realization of what Sony was trying to do with PSP and Vita. Where PSP and Vita were kind of supposed to be portable game consoles, and there was even a Vita TV and stuff like that. But Nintendo's like, hey, look, let's do that, but do it better and do it different. And it worked to massive success with Switch. They looked at the trends in the video game industry of what probably Sony's looking at right now, where they see the trends and they maybe think the audience is shrinking like Nintendo did, and Nintendo just went drastically in the opposite direction and went all blue ocean with Wii. And I think Sony is right now looking into the future and seeing their own mortality when it comes to the PlayStation brand. And it feels weird saying that when they lead the generation. They're probably easily going to pass 100 million units on PlayStation 4. But again, while that's growth over PlayStation 3, it's still a shrinking market compared to last generation. And that's not back at the PlayStation 2 levels, right? I think Sony is trying to combat the inevitable. And that is that traditional home consoles are not always going to be around forever. And things are going to give way to services. Things are going to give way to phones. Things are going to give way to all the other ways people have to consume video games. I think the one market that seems to be the most stable, ironically, is PC. Remember, the PC gaming market was supposed to go away like 10 years ago. And here we are, heading into 2019, and it's basically as strong as ever. Because the PC market seems to always be the most modernized and up-to-date with everything going on, not just from a technology perspective, but just in terms of how it manages things. Like, yeah, guess what? PC, physical games, haven't really had a... I shouldn't say there is no physical games on PC, but physical games is like an afterthought for PC gaming. Whereas console gamers like us are trying to hold on to all this stuff, and PC is just massively progressive when it comes to the advancements in the industry and being super user convenient. And as such, the market for it has grown. The digital market has a lot better discounts than you see on Switch and Xbox and PlayStation, because there's so much focus on those systems for that physical market. They can't undercut that physical market too bad, or it defeats the purpose of having that physical market. So honestly, we're at a crossroads, I think, with Sony, and it'll be interesting to see what they do moving forward. I don't think it's going to affect PlayStation 4 much, but this kind of policy change is something that you're going to see affecting how they handle things on PlayStation 5. And yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. Anyways, folks, that's my general thoughts on Sony's policy change and the recent words from their president. You guys let me know what you think about all this down on the console. Do you think I'm just way off base? Again, this is just my own speculation based on what I've seen in the industry and the trends I've seen and why Nintendo has done things they've done, what's been happening to that more gamer audience or what, however you want to describe it, and how it's kind of shrunk as more and more people are satisfied with gaming on their phones or satisfied with just getting a laptop for work and just playing games on that. It's been an interesting turn of events when it comes to this video game industry, and I do think there is a finite time that a traditional home console underneath your TV has on the market, and I don't know how long that time is, but I think Sony's trying to extend it by saying, hey, look, if we can get kids into these under TV boxes, then we're going to extend and grow that fan base for years to come, and more power to them. Nintendo kind of abandoned it now, and they're saying, look, we think hybrid's the way to go, and hey, so far they're right, and we'll see if hybrid systems have long-term viability or if that's just going to be all she wrote. Anyways, folks, I'm Nathaniel Robojans from Nintendo Prime, and if you liked the video, smash that like button, subscribe for more content. Be sure to enter our Nintendo Switch Super Smash Bros. Ultimate giveaway down in the description through the Gleam.io link. It is a 50,000 subscriber giveaway, so when we hit 50K, that's when we'll announce the winner. Otherwise, thank you guys so much, and I will catch you in the next one.